And I'm like, you're the only one talking about it, and you're talking about it in a negative way. And we know that mainstream media is not sharing the story.
Well, she brought it up about that he was breaking the law.
Oh, right.
That's right. The deceit, the lies that these anti-gunners are constantly trying to perpetuate, because as you know, he wasn't breaking any laws.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Your Average Gun Girls. Amy, I'm excited for today's guest. Like, we've talked about it when we talk about it in this episode, and I think all of our episodes at Dallas is really an awesome place for us to have our in-studio guests, because there's just a lot of people who live here, and this one is no exception. Literally so close to our studio.
Like right down the block.
I think you could have walked here.
I'm telling you, we hope to have more, because Dallas is the place to be right now if you are a Second Amendment supporting patriot. You guys are going to love this. We have radio and media personality Grant Stinchfield. You know him. You love him. You've seen him on NRA TV. You've seen him on Newsmax. You've probably heard him on his radio show. And he is going to fill us in on some amazing information on the Greenwood Mall shooting that just happened here. And you might even learn a few things about him that you did not know.
I know. It's a great episode. There's definitely some things I didn't know. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's jump right in.
Well, here we are in studio with the one and only Grant Stinchfield. Grant, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and joining our show.
Ladies, it's so good to see you both.
Well, you know, we've been a little spoiled being in Dallas. We thought it was going to be hard to find guests that could actually come in studio once we started videoing this whole thing. And we've been really lucky so far.
I think so, for certain. I think it also, we start realizing more and more people live in Dallas.
I know, we go through our list. We're like, okay, who like lives here? I was like, Grant. We got to have Grant on the show. So
literally blocks away. Blocks.
I know.
Yeah.
I think like right after I moved, I ran into you at Albernays. We were going out one night. Like, you were sitting at the bar. And you were like, oh, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, by the way, I live here now.
Yeah.
You said that, or because where'd you move from?
I've been here 20 years.
I said that.
Yeah, okay.
I said that to Grant.
Okay, yeah.
Because he was like, oh, what are you doing in town? I'm like, no, I live here now. Like, literally as of like 2 weeks or whenever that was, like last summer.
I'll give a plug to Albernays. That's my all-time favorite steakhouse. Not just in Dallas, but in the country. So anybody
is it okay? Because I have this is a good question. Okay. So favorite Dallas steakhouses. I mean, you know mine.
I know
ours
yours.
Is Chamberlain's. Mm-hmm. Richard Chamberlain is a dear friend. Love him. It's a consistently good meal every single time you go. You know what you're going to get.
Yep.
Yours is Albernays.
Mine is Albernays.
What's yours so far?
I don't know if I really have one yet. I mean, I do love Chamberlain's, but I think I love Chamberlain's because you love Chamberlain's, and that's where we go a lot.
Yeah.
But we haven't really
I don't feel like it's your vibe necessarily.
I'm trying to think of like the steakhouses that we've been to that are my vibe, and I just think all steakhouses kind of have the same.
No. Very
No.
different. Every steakhouse is different. I mean, you look at I don't know, we're going to talk steakhouses today, but a Nick and Sam's, which is flashy. They got the cakes are on fire, and then you got
the drinks are smoking.
Right.
I think I like Chamberlain's. It's like chill.
Yeah. It is chill because it's quiet. Nick and Sam's, I always feel like I lose my voice when I leave because you're screaming.
Yeah,
over
like
the
Nick
really
and Sam's
music.
is like if you have people from out of town and you have to, or if you want to celebrate something big, like it's got that.
Yeah.
But to like go and like have like a good steak with friends.
I pick restaurants all the time for the people that work there.
Yes.
So I go to restaurants because I like the people that work there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Albernays. That's why I come to this podcast, because I like the people who run it.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
There you go. Well, you guys have probably seen Grant's face all over the place. I mean, you're like the host extraordinaire. How did you get into hosting? I've never asked you that.
So I worked in mainstream television for 20-something years. I worked for NBC-owned and operated stations groups locally around the country, ending my career in Dallas at the Channel 5 station. And I got so fed up with the mainstream media and the bias, even at a local level. Mm-hmm. The economy was tanking in 2008 to 2011. And in 2011, I said, I got to go do something else. I literally was standing on a bridge in a snowstorm during a Super Bowl in Dallas, telling people to drive slow. And getting paid a decent living to tell people to drive slow.
Wait, did you say snowstorm in Dallas?
Ice.
Oh, when the Super Bowl was supposed to be here.
Ice-mageddon.
Mm-hmm. I believe you told me about this.
I did. Mm-hmm. Couldn't leave your house for like 2 weeks.
I put the microphone down on the microphone stand after telling people that my compelling news broadcast of telling people to drive slow, coming down the High-Five, which is a huge overpass in Dallas. And I said I need to do something else. So I bought an oil change business, a large one, real estate play, and I just went to work for myself. Ran for Congress, lost, That brought the radio hosting. I did afternoon drive in Dallas for 570 KLIF. The NRA was starting NRA TV in Dallas. So with my TV background, my conservative background, that led to NRA TV. And then, that went kaput. And then ultimately Newsmax called, and then was at Newsmax for a number of years. And then that's gone kaput on my behalf. And so, so now
we were on US Law Shield together.
We did. US Law Shield was great.
Yep.
So that's my background in a nutshell.
Did everyone, did you know you wanted to be in entertainment? Was that kind of what your plan was? Did you go to school for that?
It's interesting because TV news really is not entertainment, but I will say this, the best way to inform somebody is to entertain them, right?
Yeah.
You guys do that on this program. You have great knowledge, but you're entertaining, so people will listen. If you're not entertaining, nobody's going to listen.
Yeah, true.
But I went into the news business straight out of New York City, wanting to be an entertainer. And I was like, I didn't know anything about news. I was just like, this will be cool to be on TV. Well, once I got into it, and I saw, this is going to sound corny, but I saw the ability of where I could help people and where I could help people that didn't have voices, like hold leadership accountable, hold government accountable, even the artistic creativity that goes into putting together a video story. That all became my craft. And then I realized that I wasn't doing myself or really, again, not to sound corny, or the country any kind of a service by doing that. I thought my talents were better suited coming out and speaking about what I believe in most.
Yeah, because it's so funny. I kind of have I think a lot of us, we say like those of us who are older in this business, there was a point in time when we always knew that entertainment or being in news was liberal leaning, but not everybody had to come out and state their positions. Like you could be a conservative in those arenas. You might even be able to share here and there what your beliefs were, but you didn't really fear that you were going to get canceled necessarily. And I remember because I was doing the entertainment stuff as well. And I remember when NRA TV called me and I was like, I can finally vocally share what I believe without fear of repercussions. And, and then don't you just feel like from there, now you got to state your beliefs. And
yeah, it's liberating.
It is liberating.
It really is.
Well, was local news even allowing you to share that? Because I don't think it wasn't until cable news really started, I guess, becoming popular and people were buying cable that you had these networks who were starting to run the 24-hour news cycle where anchors
you didn't know what anchors believe. They weren't putting their bias
I feel like at that
stories.
Point they were just reading the teleprompter, even with the local news.
I think on a local level, certainly liberal bias infiltrates the news because you have young people coming out of college that are liberals.
Yeah.
And they're going in well-intentioned. Just like what I said, I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. It's a well-intentioned deal. The problem is they're confused. People who go into that line of work, quite frankly, they aren't thinking of entrepreneurship as an option. There are many of the same types of people that go into nonprofit work. So they don't think like business owners would think. They don't think like capitalists would think. They don't think of the grand scheme of these things. So that's why you get even local news being liberal. But then there's the silencing of reporters, especially investigative reporters, from an advertising bias, where a little old lady calls me and says, I was scammed at the local Chevy dealership and I want my money back. And I can't do a story because the Chevy dealership is a huge advertiser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? So that happens at a local level. I tried to be where you didn't know how I thought, but I covered different stories that nobody else would cover. So I remember there was a story about OxyContin. This goes back a ways where kids were snorting. This is the painkiller drug.
Yeah.
Kids were snorting it. And what was government's answer to OxyContin? Let's ban OxyContin. So I went into a hospital. I interviewed cancer patients who need OxyContin to survive. Nobody's thinking about that. These kids are snorting OxyContin, ban OxyContin. This is government says this is our solution. Just do away with it. And so I do a story like that to bring a different perspective, or a housing project that was drug infested in the Bronx. And I go in and private money bought this housing project. They made all kinds of rules. You had to sign if you're dealing drugs in the playground, we're going to shut the playground down instantly. And so what happened? The parents, the aunts and uncles, anytime a drug dealer would come in, get out of here. They're going to shut the playground down. they transformed this, the worst of the worst. It looked bad, it smelled bad, it felt bad, and they transformed it into this little haven in the middle of the Bronx. Private money, right? And so that story wasn't getting told. That's how I would tell my conservative stories on local news without anyone knowing that I was biased. And I always was biased.
Yeah. Interesting. So then when did it shift? Was working with NRA TV the first gig that you did that was, you were really able to be like very vocal about Pro 2A issues?
Well, I had my afternoon drive radio program in Dallas as well. So that was conservative talk show. So I was free to say whatever really I wanted there too. But I would say the NRA is really what gave me my entrance into the gun world and focusing in on gun issues to the level that, not that I'm an expert, but I'm almost an expert on gun issues. Right? When it comes to just, you can't help it when you're doing it every day for 8 hours a day.
And you have to be in order to be able to talk to the current issues and what's being, and to combat some of the narratives that are being told.
Sure. Well, it was such important work because you guys were telling the stories that nobody else was hearing. And I think as you dive into this world, especially like this two-way world, you're kind of like, okay, there's a lot of these good guys with a gun story, people using it to protect themselves that nobody's hearing about. Or even the stories of women joggers getting murdered that no one talks about. It ends up on the back page of the news. And you're like, we actually need to be telling these stories to help move this along,
And be proactive about it.
Like the story of the guy in Indianapolis.
Right.
Golly, I mean, talk about in one story what we've all been saying, why constitutional carry is so important. I've been dying to know this though. Okay, this guy, you'd have to be under a rock to not hear this story, but you guys, this 22-year-old kid goes into the mall. He's a concealed carry. They have constitutional carry there, but he's concealed carrying. Were you shocked when you heard it was a 50-yard shot? He hit him 8 times out of 10. Would you have taken a 50-yard shot?
So, you have to know what's behind you.
Right.
But, you have to weigh something else too, which is you understand there are potential victims behind you. I don't know if there was, that's like the number one rule of shooting.
Yeah.
Know what's behind your target. But even so, if life is being taken, you have to weigh the risk of, yes, I may hit an innocent civilian, but I may save 10 others.
Sure.
Well, that's a really hard thing, especially for liberals to comprehend. Right. And I get into this argument, we talk about arming teachers. So they said, well, what if the teacher shoots and hits a child? And I said, okay, that would be horrible. But if the teacher doesn't shoot and hit one child, the whole classroom's dead.
Right.
The whole classroom's dead. So, in that situation, it's a little different than checking, what's downrange when you're at the gun range.
But I'm trying to picture this. I'm like, when I go to the gun range and I'm working on, I don't practice 50-yard shots very often.
I don't know if there's many ranges you could have a 50-yard shot indoors.
Right.
But okay, how many of us that were lining up, we're breathing, we're aiming,
like we are consciously like knowing we are about to shoot. So we are doing everything mentally to prepare to take that shot. We know we're either at 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 yards. At a target
that's standing still.
Right.
Not shooting back at you. Like the fact that this guy hit him 8 times, that the shooter was probably moving.
So when I train, I like to train moving, right? I like to be outside. I like to train moving because that's how you're going to end up in a gunfight. You're not going to be able to like take a breath and, but you had a guest on this program, Eddie Penny, was a Navy SEAL, taught me too about in a situation anywhere, if you can find yourself a flat platform, if you're in a movie theater and there's a shooter and you can use the seat as a flat platform, it should take a 50-yard shot. Now, this guy didn't have a flat platform, a table, a seat, whatever it might be. It's really quite amazing. And then you think about your blood pressure and your heart beating. And so I've gone through some simulation with officers where they have the 360 or 180 simulation, and they'll run you through, and you have firearms. And we went on a routine patrol stop, and you have a heart rate monitor on you. At the start of the simulation, my heart rate was about 75, which is higher than normal for me, but I'm nervous because I got a camera and I'm with cops and I want to do well. Well, the guy gets out of the car and starts shooting at us. And they didn't tell me that it was going to also shoot plastic little bullets.
Like so actual sim rounds.
Actual sim rounds.
Yeah.
I hear these things bouncing past us. My heart rate went to 140 beats a minute in less than 10 seconds.
Where'd you do this training?
It was set up in Dallas with the Dallas Police Department. But,
cool.
But there's a lot of organizations that do it.
Sure. Yeah.
I fired 9 rounds. 1 round hit him in his ankle. The police officer fired 4 rounds, hit him 3 times center mass.
How far away was he?
15 yards. Now, I should be good from 15 yards. But literally, I'm jumping behind a door as I'm trying to dodge whatever these things are that are coming at me.
Are you padded? Are you like, do you have...
They were literally little plastic
They
balls.
still hurt.
And just the sheer fact that something's coming at me, even though I knew it's a simulation.
Yeah.
So I know it's a simulation. I know I'm not going to get killed, but my heart rate goes to 140 beats a minute. Can you imagine this kid in the mall who took him down in 15 seconds?
Right. How old was he?
22.
Right.
Like,
okay.
We aren't saying this enough, but like that is so heroic. I mean, I cannot wrap my head around the situation and what happened and the training. I told Emily, I said, the guy, I don't know where he was training. I don't think that information has come out yet or how much. Like, is he former military? We don't know a whole lot about him.
Right.
But I'm like, if I was that guy's trainer, I would be stepping up and saying, I trained him, come work with me, because I don't think a lot of us are prepared for that, for a 50-yard shot to unload your magazine. And it made me think too, what gun I carry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking that shot with my Ruger LCP.
Right.
That's not happening. I'm not hitting him, and I can't do it that fast anyways.
Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380 then.
I mean, well, we carry those, I carry it when I go running, but I carry it because I'm anticipating that if I'm out jogging and I have to use my gun, it's because it's a close quarter. Someone has jumped out and
the
grabbed
situation
me.
you're going to be in terms of like where you're going.
I don't carry that gun when I go to the mall, when I go to the movie theater. That's not, I carry something bigger that I can be more accurate at a farther distance. But I just think that goes to show so many things you got to think through. Do we even know what gun he used?
I don't know what gun.
No, I think it's been pretty quiet on like a lot of aspects of.
I'd love to know what gun he used.
I would,
because usually I feel like some of that stuff comes out pretty quick, but I think too I've seen
you instantly know what gun the mass shooter uses, but they're not reporting on what gun the hero used.
Because I think most of the stuff that we've been seeing that has come out from him in terms of the anti-gun agenda has been that is not the solution in terms of having somebody, because I can't remember the tweet, but I ran across it that, of course, the lovely Shannon Watts said something about him. And I'm like, you're the only one talking about it, and you're talking about it in a negative way. And we know that mainstream media is not sharing the story.
Well, she brought it up about that he was breaking the law.
Oh, right.
That's right. The deceit, the lies that these anti-gunners are constantly trying to perpetuate, because as you know, he wasn't breaking any laws.
Right. So there was technically it's a gun-free zone, the mall in Indianapolis. Now, Indiana, like Texas, has been on the forefront of making really pro-gun laws and in favor of gun owners. So it's a gun-free zone, just like in Texas where we live. You can carry your gun into the gun-free zone, but as soon as you're asked to leave or if someone sees you have one, then you have to leave or go put your gun away. Right. But if no one asks you to leave, you haven't broken any law.
Right.
And so that's the left doesn't really understand that. And then I would ask, he's 22 years old. Well, would he have been not mature enough to have done this at 20 years old? 2 years ago? Could he not have done this? I mean, they say that young people can't carry guns. I don't care whether he's 22 or 20 or what. You're still a young person to me. I'm 53.
Yeah.
Right.
28, you're a kid to me. But it just blows the argument for everything, because here you had a good guy with a gun stop a bad guy with a gun. You had a gun-free zone. Thankfully, you had a guy with the wherewithal to say, I'm carrying my firearm in here anyway. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried out by 12. And thankfully, Indiana had a law in place that, you're not going to be able to prosecute this guy. And there are states, though, that would prosecute him.
Yeah.
You think about, I do radio in Los Angeles. I can't carry a firearm in Los Angeles. So my country, the state that I work in, California, has says your life is not valuable enough to protect yourself. Even though I have a Second Amendment constitutional right to do that, they say you can't protect yourself here. If I was to carry anyway and make an argument that I'm still within my rights to carry, they would put me in jail. Now, they don't put anybody else in jail, but they would put me in jail.
Mm-hmm. If you were to use it in a self-defense situation. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just has blown my mind that is immediately where the anti-gun narrative goes. I just did a post the other day. They had a law expert on The View, and that's really what they were talking about was, this kid broke the law. And it's like, no, first off, I'm shocked because they don't know the difference between policy and law. Like, you can have private property that has policies in place that aren't breaking the law of the state.
Now, some states he would have been breaking the law. So some states it's illegal to, if the business owner puts up no guns allowed and you carry a gun in there, you're breaking law. And it was that way in Texas up until only recently that Texas changed the law.
Well, but in Texas, you have to have the certain signage, like the 30-6, 30-7 signage, the gun-free signs
you can't just
at the
have
movie theater, even though that's their
allowed.
policy, would not have disallowed you to take it in there necessarily versus the big signs that have to be posted in a certain place.
I will tell you, I carry even when there is a gun-free zone. I know maybe I'm not supposed to say that, whatever. I carry when I see the signs. I still carry in there.
Well, what's the worst that can happen? Is it a fine?
The worst that can happen is I'm dead.
Right there.
That's the worst that can happen. I'm dead. And you know what? I'm not taking that chance.
Yep. Well, and I thought this was interesting because I've been thinking through this a lot. And I'm like, what if we started holding places accountable? We meaning like those of us who carry our firearms. We start holding places accountable that are gun-free zones that say, you know what? If something happens in here and you have now told me I have to put my gun up, I can no longer be responsible for my own safety, that you're in control of my safety. And if you fail to do your job, why don't we start suing them for not keeping us safe? I bet if all of us would join together and start doing that, we could maybe start getting some of these people to take down these signs and stop being gun-free zones.
I'll only play ultra conservative here though, right? Which property rights is everything. So if you have a private business owner and they own the property and they control the property, they really have the right to do with whatever they want with that property. And you have the right to say, yes, I'll come in here, or no, I won't. And so ultimately that's where I believe it falls down onto. So I would say, talk to the business owner before we talk about suing them. Talk to them, say, hey, I'm not going to come shop here anymore because you have a gun-free zone sign on your door. I'm not going to shop here anymore. Rather than
probably hit them, a little bit harder if we all decided we're just not going to shop there.
I just don't know if it would ever really, those kind of boycott things never really work. But here's what I do say. When I see businesses with signs that say, and I understand when they say no open carry allowed, right? They say just concealed carry, and you can do that in Texas.
Yeah.
I actually say thank you for allowing me to have because I know that person who's saying no open carry probably is a little shaky on guns, right? So, but they're still saying, you know what, it's important enough that I allow people to come in here. I thank them for saying, hey, thank you for allowing us to carry in here, and let them know that it's appreciated.
I've never thought about doing that. I think that has a positive impact. I think in letting these business owners know that that we care, that they care.
I've talked to them before when we can't, and they're always like, it's like the cat. I'm like, can I speak to the manager? And the manager's like, take it up with corporate.
Take it up with corporate. Yeah, exactly.
Like they have no idea. They're not in charge of that,
I'm not a big fan of open carry either. So, but look, it is your right to do it. I'd rather have the right to do things rather than no rights to do things. But I don't understand any of you that carry open, choosing to carry open. I don't know why you would literally put a target on the back of your head, because that is where you will be shot when the robber comes in.
Are you? I mean, because really, is a gunman that's walking in and tending to do harm to mass amounts of people really taking the time to look around and see who has a gun on their head?
It's not the mass shooter that's looking. It's the guy that's going to hold up the cashier that's looking. So maybe you might
or
chase him away.
Or could it deter him?
It could deter him. But either way, it's not helping you to carry open. I really don't think it is helping.
Yeah, I know there's a huge back and forth in terms of pro and against
the
that.
The only time I would say I want to do it is when I'm running and it's too freaking hot outside and I just want to have a sports bra and shorts on. And I'm so hot wearing so many clothes because that's how I used to run.
And that's different too, though. Tactical advantage is everything. Yeah. And so you give up some of your tactical advantage if you're carrying openly, in my opinion. But
I totally can.
You want to get views, we'll talk about things like that.
But to your point, I mean, if you're concealed carrying and they put up a no concealed carry sign, how do they know?
And that's why I go in. And by the way, I'm not breaking the law in Texas when I do that.
Really?
Yeah, because they have to ask me to leave, just like in Indiana.
So even with the signs,
even with the sign. So if I go in Texas, just like in Indiana where the mall was, if it says concealed carry is barred from carrying here, you go in, the business owner has to ask you to leave.
Because then it's criminal trespassing. Right. It's not necessarily that you're breaking the law of the state. You're not going to get a gun charge.
And I would leave. I'm not going to argue with that. And I'm not going to argue or, look, it's not the employee's fault. I'm not going to get stupid arguments with low-level people, right? Yeah. So that's what happened with these mask mandates was that you gave $10 an hour employees the right to boss around millionaires, and they loved it.
Sure.
So I'm not getting in a fight with those people.
Power trip.
Yeah.
So in Indiana, was there a no concealed carry or was it just the policy marked as a gun?
No, it just said, guns and weapons are prohibited under the policy. Okay. So, and then underneath it literally said, if you were, found, breaking any of these, we can ask you to leave. And if you refuse, you could be arrested for criminal trespassing. Right. I mean, that was basically the gist of it. So, I mean, nobody even from the mall at this point has come out condemning the guy. The spokesperson for the mall has claimed he's a hero. Yeah. I mean, so nobody other than anti-gunners are actually saying, even the police chief is out there.
So and I say this with, I know people are going to scoff or laugh at this, but did this mall have security? Because I know, when I say mall security or even back in DC, security in some of these buildings, I'm like, that guy is not going to save my life.
Like Paul Blart. I mean,
But just in general, are the businesses in the malls, are they employing security with all of the cuts that,
I don't know. I mean, they're not even allowed to catch you and chase you if you're stealing something anymore. You think the small security is going to come after a mass shooter?
Security even around?
I don't know.
At this,
my guess is they probably had mall security. They probably had some off-duty cops in there, and you probably had jewelry stores that employ off-duty cops in every mall. I'm sure, but even if you have security, and this goes back to my argument about school security, which is on top of mind of everybody, is even if you have an armed police officer and he's down the hall, it's not fast enough to stop a mass shooter. Down the hall, you could take 15, 20 souls.
Yep.
So
some of these campuses are a mile long. I mean,
between
you look at
all
them,
the buildings,
you're not getting there.
Which is why the more good people you have that are armed, the better everybody is. So the left really has a problem with truth. And when I say the left, I say anti-freedom, anti-gunners, anti-liberty Americans. They can't see truth. It is an absolute fact that lives were saved because this young man shot and killed this attacker swiftly. That is an absolute fact. It is an absolute fact that he is a hero. But you get someone like Shannon Watts with Moms Demand Action, an anti-gunner who's a lunatic, that cannot acknowledge truth. I mean, you have to acknowledge, I'm glad he was there. Shannon Watts, if your daughter was in that mall, are you not happy that guy was there? Right. And if you say no, you are lying to me.
Yep. We've invited her, and I will make the invitation one more time. Shannon Watts, please come on our show anytime. We would love to have you in studio on camera to discuss this stuff, because I would just we know we're probably not going to get a very honest conversation with you, but I would love to just where were you thinking?
Well, I'll tune into that one.
Yeah.
I think we may need to have that in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah. Live studio audience.
Real good.
Yeah.
And Alyssa Milan.
Oh, yeah. You actually, I feel like she's been kind of quiet lately. Or have I just not noticed?
I don't know.
Because I feel like there was that time where she was just out there at the forefront, every anti-gun thing that was happening. I feel like I saw tweets about her, she was in the news, and then all of a sudden I think I realized it when we were at NRA, because with all those protests, I'm like, wait, wasn't she at the last NRA meetings, like out there protesting. And then I realized this, I'm like, I don't know if she's around. And I haven't really seen much of her because she used to be pretty vocal.
You know, I joked back in the day, the reason she was around so much, all that, because she had a crush on me. She's just trying to get close to me.
That is great. You know what? Maybe so.
Maybe. You never know.
Maybe.
You just can't admit that.
That's right.
Would you ever date an anti-gunner?
No, I couldn't date a liberal, even if they were anti-guns, but they were, it wouldn't work. I mean, the circles I run in, my friends, there's just no way that would ever be possible.
I often wonder that. I often wonder how in this day and age, people with such, because our politics is so divisive, it seems like,
and it's
how
running
in this day and age.
I feel like it's running every kind of social conversation. When you go out, people want to talk about something political happening, whether it be guns, COVID, just presidency, things like that.
If you and your spouse voted two different ways in this last election, we really want to hear from you. Could you let us know how you make that relationship work?
You know what people are surprised at is my parents are New York liberals. And so...
They're surprised at that? Oh, they're surprised because they're your parents. Gotcha.
They're my parents. And my parents are New York liberals, and I love them. And it's been really a very, very difficult time for us, especially with me getting publicity and you know, my mom once said I ruined the family name, which is tough, right? I mean, you don't want your mom to think you ruined the family name, but they're just wildly confused.
How did you become so different in
your views?
Yeah,
have they always been liberal?
They were not always into politics as much as probably they are now, but I've said this. I always was like, I was an Alex P. Keaton, remember from Family Ties? Yeah. I was always like Alex P. Keaton, only an athlete. Okay? But my mother, a New York liberal, taught me everything I know about conservatism. And she doesn't even realize it.
Really?
She taught me that I have to take responsibility for my own actions. From an early age, she taught me that. She says, when you get down, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't wait for somebody else. Nobody's gonna bail you out. She used to say to me, and her most famous one was, nobody can make you do anything. I would punch my sister in the car, and my sister would say, you know, Grant punched me, and I said, she made me do it. And she says, nobody can make you do anything. That's very true. Now, these are conservative principles that my mother, liberal mother from New York, taught me. And she's just confused about politics.
So what was it? I mean, you just grew up and you said, well, this is my foundation. And then you just started paying attention more to actual politics and the way that politicians were voting. I mean,
I always was conservative. And I always was fascinated by the news. And the defining moment for me was I loved Ronald Reagan growing up, right? So I date myself, but that was like my high school years. And when Ronald Reagan was shot, I was glued to the television. Watching the news, hearing the news, seeing how he was. And I think that moment shaped a lot of what I ended up doing in life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. I had no idea about that. I didn't even know. Did you live in New York?
Westchester County, right outside New York City.
I did not know that you grew up. I always kind of thought you were just
and
a good old
Texas
Texas
gun guy. My dad's a hunter, shotguns, duck hunting, bird hunting. So I always was around guns. Usually more of the shotgun community, but even my father doesn't get. He'll talk about AR-15s like Shannon Watts talks about AR-15s.
I feel like though that is almost normal for people who are coming from that like shotgun like upbringing.
Do you know why?
No.
People are going to get angry at me for saying this, but it's almost an elitist community. The shotgun community of bird hunting, trap and skeet, it's an elitist community. A lot of people in the Northeast, I know they do it in other parts of the country too, but you know, these shotguns can be very, very expensive.
Right, isn't it very like country club kind of like?
Very much so. You know, you get, and they're great places and great guys and gals that are there. But there's more of an elitist mentality, and up north, you know, people are just liberal. They just do not understand what the middle of the country, they don't understand how they think, they don't understand how they feel, and they don't understand what's important. And it's kind of sad, really.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, we're I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, did Congress just vote on banning AR-15s again?
I think so.
So where are we now? It's got to go to the Senate?
Yeah, and you know, you hope a guy like Joe Manchin, they need 60 votes. I don't think, but you know, Republicans I've got a real problem right now with Republicans. You don't know what the Mitt Romneys are going to do in the world. And I'm tired of them all up there. And I truly believe that Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy are all probably in the basement members lounge toasting scotches, and the joke's on all of us. And it's time to get back to, governing for the people. We're no longer a government by and for the people.
What do you think is going to happen if that does pass? I mean, how do you see that going for the country? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
If we get an AR-15 ban?
Another one. We've already had one in this country.
Well, I'll put it like this. I'm a law-abiding guy, except for a few speeding tickets. I climbed a water tower once in college. I'm guilty of that, okay? But for the most part, I'm a law-abiding guy. I'm not giving up my guns.
Right. Well, and...
Look at my shirt.
Exactly. Come and take it.
Come and take it.
That's right.
And I'm a law-abiding guy. So you think the criminals are going to give up their guns?
Of course not.
The banning of the AR-15s in any aspect, it's not going to stop the mass shootings. We've had this conversation. We've talked about it extensively with Diana from the DC Project, but it's not going to stop. They think that this is going to stop, and they don't want to get to the root cause of trying to solve an actual problem. They just want to start mandating and taking things away.
Sure. We say this over and over again. It's not about keeping people safe. The AR-15 is just the easiest firearm to ban because it's scary. It's something that people can associate with being a weapon of war. And we know that because if you actually look at the stats, it's handguns that are used majority for gun violence in this country. So if it really was about safety and keeping people safe, they'd be going after the handgun right now, but they know it's going to be a lot harder to convince people to give up their handguns, so they start with the AR-15.
I'll tell you what it's about. It's about absolute control. It's about government control over all of you. So you look at what happened in Australia. They took away all the guns. And what did the government just do during the COVID lockdowns? They enacted literally oppressive tyranny on the people of Australia. It is a fact that the Emperor of Japan during World War II considered invading the United States of America. And he said, no, we are not going to invade America because everybody has guns. We'd never stand a chance. Our government trying to disarm us is solely about control over us. It's not about the safety of any of you roaming around a mall someplace today.
Well, and I find it interesting with Australia. We know that violence has actually been on the rise in Australia once they took away the buyback program. They had the guns, and then everyone I'm always seeing that loves to chime in from Australia that's like, well, we don't have school shootings because we don't have AR-15s. I'm like, but you also don't have freedom, and you also don't realize that the firearm is the symbol of freedom to America. And that's what all these countries, we want to follow suit. A lot of the people, anti-gunners on the left, really want to follow suit on what's happening in Europe and other countries around the world because those people don't understand freedom. They don't understand that that's why we hold this so dear, because at the end of the day, we don't want an oppressive government.
I will take democracy, freedom, liberty. It takes exceptional people for it to work. It takes honesty for it to work. It takes strength and resolve for it to work. And there's societies in this world, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. But it works in America. And so I will always continue to fight to make sure it stays that way in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Grant, before we wrap up, we have like a quick little rapid fire thing that we want to ask you. So on your bio, it says you're a self-proclaimed 53-year-old gym rat.
Yes.
How do we look so good at 53? What is the secret?
I'm all jacked up on testosterone. That's not a joke either.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Testosterone. Look at that.
Those are my gun show. No, testosterone, honestly, this is not a plug. They don't represent it. But for men over 45, like this was a game changer for me. I felt like a train had run over me every morning. I couldn't even make a fist. And so that has really changed my life. But it also takes hard work, and I eat right, and I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. Not a long time, 30, 40 minutes.
I mean, when it comes to working out, I think consistency is a huge aspect.
I'm not telling anything to either of you that you don't already know. You guys look fabulous.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Second question, what is your everyday carry?
My SIG P365.
And is that for all working out every day? Do you change them up?
So I know your Navy SEAL buddy of mine, Eddie Penny. I know he carries with him when he works out in the gym. I don't. I wish I could, but I just am not quite there. But it is in my locker.
Yeah.
And I actually bought a fingerprint safe for my locker at the gym because I heard there were some break-ins. I belong to a nice gym.
Yeah.
So I've got it wrapped to just make it more difficult for them. But no, my Sig P365 is my carry almost solely for everything except in your Alexo Athletica.
Yeah.
When I go out for a run, I just carry my little body. It's a little 380. It's easier to carry. And so I carry that there. Or if I'm wearing gym shorts, sometimes I put that 380 in my pocket.
Okay, well, I'm going to send you a pair of our men's shorts that are coming out this week.
You guys had sent me
You can put that in there.
I mean, such.
Real that you did.
Yes.
Well,
thank you for that plug. I do appreciate
you.
that. I just wanted you to like the gear,
No.
and I didn't need you to send that, but I appreciate that you did.
Absolutely.
I just really wanted you to like it and wear it and all that. So, all right, last one. This is for both of you, actually.
Yeah.
Who here at the table is going to be trying pink sauce this week?
First off, I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
Okay,
What's
good.
pink
I thought
sauce?
maybe you might know.
Guys. On TikTok, this stuff literally called pink sauce.
Yeah.
It's being bottled up and sold. A TikToker made it and is selling it. It has just gone completely
like
viral.
it's like
She's
this
selling
pink
millions
slime.
of bottles of pink sauce.
Like,
through
is it
TikTok.
like a food? Like sauce?
Yes, yeah, you put it on everything.
Put it on everything.
You put it on everything.
I don't know.
What's in it?
I did just get on TikTok recently.
You did?
Yes. And I know it's controlled by the Chinese and all that stuff, but I was like, you know what? I watched a guy, what's his name? Gary something. He does,
Gary V? Like the entrepreneur?
Gary V. Yeah, that's it. So he said TikTok is the place.
It is.
If you're not on TikTok, you're not getting your message out. So I'm one who's like still hanging around on Twitter. Like I'll put my message out wherever anybody will hear it. Do you know I've grown? Now this is not a lot, but I went from 12 followers on TikTok to 6,000 in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, TikTok is really.
No, we can't grow on there because they ban all of our gun stuff.
Every single time, I don't even post on my TikTok anymore because every single time I post within 30 seconds, the post is
I have gotten some of those.
Like, my whole, like when I go and open up my page, like a person who wants to follow me may see like 3 posts, but I have like 20 and it's like community value. I'm like, forget it. I'm not even going to go there. It's just not even
because
worth
I'm like, if our message is to help women know how to conceal carry, or they want to give information about that, we can't show a firearm at all. Crazy. So I've been thinking, like, do we put a banana there? Do we put like,
I don't know.
Even glue guns.
I think it's the computer that's figured it out. So I can tell you, I started a YouTube channel, Stinchfield Uncensored. All right, please go subscribe to it. And I literally started from scratch, but Stinchfield Uncensored. One of the videos I put up was after this mall shooting. I put up a video, how to survive a mass shooting. And I went through the steps you need to take if something happens to survive a mass shooting. They instantly flagged it and took it down. Well, I appealed it. And to YouTube's credit, they reinstated it.
Oh, really?
I said, you're right. I said, look, I'm not.
You didn't have a gun.
I didn't have any violent video, no shooting. I said, I'm literally teaching people how to survive. Mm-hmm. How are you taking this? And, they
how long did it take for them to?
Less than a few hours.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just kind of depends on like either like the algorithm, who might be working that day.
Or who might be working.
Probably. Yeah, that's so true. So, all right. Well, if you guys do decide to try some pink sauce, let me know how it is. I don't really want to put that stuff in my mouth. They say, I mean, it's hilarious. You guys should actually go look it up because
I'm scared.
Well, I don't know if it's like homegrown in her kitchen or like whatever it is, but like
want it.
Misspelled vinegar and the ingredients.
No
yeah, like I think it's dragon fruit vinegar, garlic, honey. And I forget the other thing, but it's literally just called pink sauce. If you guys have any plans to try it or you have tried it, please drop us a note and let us know.
Yeah,
pink sauce is good and we should risk our lives to do it. So.
Besides your YouTube channel, Grant, let our listeners know where they can find you, follow you, and catch up on.
So Stinchfield 1776 on just about every social media outlet out there. Stinchfield 1776. Stinchfield Uncensored on YouTube and Rumble, of course. Yep. And I've started there too.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes, but we definitely thank you for coming. Hope you'll come back again soon.
Of course. Great job.
Yes. Thanks, guys. We'll see you again next week.
Not Your Average Gun Girl Show and its related companies, Alexo Athletica LLC and Stami Tactical LLC, shares information that may potentially have legal implications for its listeners. A reminder that laws vary for each state, and we encourage listeners to seek local legal advice to understand applicable laws. Any items, services, products, and advice mentioned during the Not Your Average Gun Girl Show should be used at your own discretion in accordance with your local and state laws, and you should follow applicable manufacturer's instructions. Not Your Average Gun Girls, Alexo Athletica LLC, and Stami Tactical LLC cannot be held liable for your actions based on the information shared.